He's bringing back that it all goes, y'all, I'm telling you, it all goes back to Atlantis. This all fucking goes back to Atlantis. That's why the Magdalene bloodline is so important. Again, the Merovingians, O negative bloodline, my bloodline is Atlantean. That's why they wanted to get rid of Magdalene. It's not about her necessarily. It's about the passing on of the Atlantean bloodline. In obedience to the law, the word of the master grew into flower, downward into darkness, turned the thoughts of the Atlanteans, until at last in his wrath arose Aguante the dweller. So this again is the state of detachment. Speaking the word, calling the power, deep in the earth's heart, the sons of Amente heard, and hearing, directed the changing of the flower of fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting, using the Lagos, until the great fire changed its direction. Over the world then broke the great waters. So now we're getting into the collapse of Atlantis, okay? So over the world then broke the great waters, drowning and seeking, changing Earth's balance until only the temple of light was left standing on the great mountain of Undal, still rising out of the water. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountain. So basically he's saying here that there were people who survived the flood. They went to high ground, okay? Called to me the master, saying, gather ye together my people, take them by the arts ye have learned from far across the waters, until ye reach the land of the hairy barbarians, dwelling in the caves of the desert. Follow them there, a plan ye know. And so we know from last week that when Atlantis fell, the group that was with Thoth knew what was going on. But after Atlantis fell, because these tablets were written a couple of generations after the fall, everyone who survived forgot. They went through amnesia. They forgot what they were or where they came from. And so they went back into living in caves. They went from having this like George Jetson sophisticated life to now living in caves again. And so the master, God, source, creator is saying, okay, Thoth, now go down from the mountain and start to talk to these hairy barbarians. They're being called barbarians now, to start this chain in motion, to get them to remember where they come from. Gathered I then my people and entered the great ship of the master. Upward we rose into the morning, dark beneath the unslated temple. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanished from the earth until time appointed was the great temple. And so as they're leaving their temple where they were located, it now disappears because it can't come back again until our generation. Thus we fled towards the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. Raging they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy. Now it's interesting because Billy Carson talks about cargo. I think he called it, what do you call it? Cargo cartels. There's a really, really great talk with Billy Carson where he talks about how a lot of these religions, including Christianity, are coming from off-worlders. And so it's almost like, so we have these Thoth and his like homies, his gang, his entourage, are now coming down, and these people are living very barbaric lives. They don't remember where they come from. And so Thoth has all this equipment, all this knowledge. And so at first, they're afraid of Thoth, okay? But then what happens over time is they start to see Thoth as a deity. Now, Thoth he never calls himself a god. He says, I am just a son of Atlantis. I'm just someone who's like you, happens to remember what happened. But that's where we start to see these temples arise. And we see this in a lot of religions. I mean, again, Billy Carson, check out his Origins of Religion talk, because he talks all about this, about how throughout history, that's why we call the Greek gods, is because our ancestors didn't understand that they weren't gods. They were just off-worlders who were more advanced than we were. And the only way we could explain them in our lack of knowledge was a god or a goddess. When they're not actually gods or goddesses, they're just literally extraterrestrial humanoid beings that just had more advanced technology. And so